All right, welcome to Web3 Talks, the what's, how's, and why's of NFTs. My name is Peter Morick. I'm head of public affairs at Parity Technologies, filling in for my colleague Phil, who is welcoming his second kid into the world. Congratulations, Phil, to you and yours. Today, we are joined by Vitek from Enjin, Shaban from EverDreamSoft, and Elliot from And Art Agency to discuss all things NFTs on Polkadot and beyond. So, first of all, gentlemen, welcome. And I'll ask that you give a little bit of an introduction of yourselves. We'll go clockwise around the screen, starting with Vitek.
Hey, so my name is Vitek. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Enjin. We've been in the blockchain space for 4 years, and we've been a company working in the gaming space for about 12 years now. And so we were basically created the first NFT platform for game developers and companies and people to start minting NFTs. I'm also the author of the ERC 1155 standard, which is a popular NFT standard now.
Great, thank you. So first off, I think we'll start with Shaban. You mentioned that you're sort of like a dinosaur in the NFT space. Rather than like us going through and talking about how we got, the classic, like how I got into crypto stories, like maybe a little bit tired out. So let's start off with something like a little bit different. Just talking about the NFT space from when you started out to now, like how does it compare from those like sort of early days, and then like how are you feeling about the NFT space? What does it look like compared to that today? Shaban, starting with you.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, back in the early days, before even Ethereum, and people were experimenting with Bitcoin, like Shaban said, and there was like the concepts of colored coins and all this stuff, and people were trying to make different kinds of activity happen on the blockchain. But when Enjin really got started in the space, in the blockchain space, we were trying to bring these kind of ownable items into games, because a lot of our users were running Minecraft servers. They were taking in donations for the communities and giving people perks in the game or items in the game. And there was, a lot of the problems people have mentioned in the talk already now. People were losing items, servers were getting reset, people were getting banned, losing their things. There was a lot of frustration. And we started seeing that you could go a lot further than just owning something or trading something. You could actually make it an interesting part of your gameplay. So when we got started in this, really the only standard on Ethereum was ERC 20 for tokens. And we were like, how could we make this work? Should we extend it? And there was nothing, like it wasn't an easy standard to work with. The thing is with ERC 20, they're made for currencies, right? For you have a token symbol, you have an amount that you own and an address that owns it, and then you have permissions. Every smart contract, like ENJ, for example, or BAT or any other ERC 20 token has its own permissions. Who can interact with it? What smart contracts can do it? And they're all sort of walled off. So if you want to put a bunch of tokens into a game, it's nearly impossible with that standard. So I started writing the very first sort of Ethereum, one of the first Ethereum kind of contracts, I think, in the world in early 2017. And, it turned into the ERC 1155 standard. Meanwhile, ERC 721 actually came out with CryptoKitties and those guys. And we saw that they were doing pure NFTs, one item. But we wanted a more extensive standard that supported, stacks of things or NFTs, and the ability to send batches of them at once, which now I think a lot of people are really appreciating. ERC 1155 is seeing a lot of growth in the Ethereum community because you can do these batch operations. You can mint fungibles, non-fungibles, and so that's been going really well. And we've seen this massive explosion over the last six or 8 months now of NFTs, and a lot of people are starting to now press into the utility. Beyond just collecting something, they want to use it, they want to interact with it, they want to craft it, they want to do all kinds of things. And we started hitting some sort of blockers with Ethereum, where games that want to integrate this stuff, they needed more power. They didn't want to deal with the massive transaction fees on the Ethereum network. They want to do a lot of stuff on chain. So we started last year looking at Polkadot and a lot of other blockchains, and we realized that it was a perfect platform to start developing a kind of a cross-chain next-gen NFT standard on. So what we're doing now is we're building something called the Paratoken standard. We've done a lot of progress on it. We're hoping to post it to the community soon, and we're hoping that will create a way for people to bring NFTs from Ethereum into Polkadot, into other chains, into Kusama, and give people a lot more power there.
Yeah, people will see I have my New York Botanical Garden Kusama exhibit shirt that I got yesterday afternoon. Very great exhibit. If you're in town, I highly recommend you check it out. I think there's also one in Berlin right now. That's great. I think before we go into sort of like what's sort of more broadly speaking the future of NFTs, sort of getting past that journey from the beginning to now, I wanted to talk about some of the like challenges that have emerged. First, I think starting in the art world with Elliot, like I've always had this question, right, is like, if I buy a piece of art in a gallery that's on the wall, I would like an NFT to go along with it to represent digital ownership of that. But like, what are the challenges associated with the physical and digital divide, right? You need to figure out a way to like cross that bridge.
I'm seeing people actually experimenting with a few different options here as well. For example, we're speaking with some sport leagues who actually want to do, like when you receive a ticket, you go to the game or whatever, and the ticket has a QR code on it. And if you've attended that game, then you can take that ticket back, load it into your wallet, and maybe there's some video games associated with that you get, or you get to keep the ticket stub in a digital form, so then you can collect those and do things with them in the future. Another way, there's I think there's some game developers experimenting with having those digital tokens, having a digital character, and then turning it into a physical piece of merchandise, either 3D printing it or actually receiving some sort of merchandise, some weapon from the game or whatever it is in like a physical form. So that's kind of cool as well.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one to think about, and I think the design space for new interesting products that people are really going to go wild over is very vast. So let's just riffing on that, like let's talk about what the future looks like, right? Again, so we got sort of like through the past, we understand generally speaking where the present is, like what's the future of digital ownership look like, sort of again across your specialties. Vitek, let's start with you again here. Like what's the trippiest, coolest future case of digital ownership via NFTs?
Ideas? Well, there's a lot of ideas, and I actually used to talk about them a lot when we first started, and now slowly we're very close to the technology being ready, where it's ubiquitous enough, and people can actually all have wallets and start interacting with these things.
And you got to sell the boring stuff to get it out there first.
Yeah. So you can think of lots of interesting scenarios. I think in the next few years, people are going to start experimenting with on-demand minting, where people can actually mint their own items, mint their own tokens, and then integrate them into a game, into some sort of multiverse. With Enjin, we first kind of like made this thing called the multiverse, where we created a bunch of items and we just distributed them to like 10 or 15 game developers and said, hey guys, collaborate, try to use these in your games. So it was like a first attempt at sort of jump-starting something like that. Then I could see a lot of interesting things with like real-world AR, where how huge Pokemon Go was. Imagine those were tokens. You could run around the world and pick up crypto tokens, or you could fight literal AR battles inside the real world. If you win, you can go and snatch up all the tokens laying on the ground. There's you can actually collaborate with people, put your tokens together, and then have like something really at stake. Let's say you all build a battle bot together, and you have a bunch of friends that build a battle bot with their tokens. The other guys build a battle bot. If you defeat the other battle bot, you get to sweep up all the tokens. It adds a lot of stress and excitement to gameplay, and just there's so much we can talk about. But yeah, I see that kind of stuff becoming a core part of gameplay, a core part of people's interaction with the world. I even want to do things like just on demand mint some NFTs just use them in daily life. I mean, let's say, I could even just tell, my Alexa to mint some sort of, chores token, and, my kid will get the tokens and can redeem them for something like gameplay time, or I don't know, whatever, right? There's a lot of interesting stuff you can do.
Awesome. What's the wildest future case you see for NFTs, and I guess specifically in gaming as your area of expertise, but even beyond?
Actually, just wanted to mention really quick on that note that you were saying. I actually live in Vancouver, and I just heard about this art exhibit happening underneath one of our major bridges. This artist, I think her name is Jessica Angel, and she basically is NFT-izing the bridge, where you're using Kusama. So you walk under the bridge, you whip out your phone, and you see these NFTs and AR environment. It's all crazy, and you can pick up some of these NFTs while you walk around there. So that's it's one other example of this in the real world.
One step into that direction, I'm looking out for, not even for the glasses, but the contact in your eye. That's when it'll really be for real.
Yeah. On that note, I should give a shout out to probably CADAF, which is the Crypto and Digital Art Fair, which has been doing this in New York and Paris and different locations around the world. Acute Art as well has been commissioning traditional artists to create these similar I don't know, exhibitions, performances, whatever that Vitek mentioned. There are people doing it, and I think it's very cool.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about sort of I guess we're in the midst of a bull market still. NFTs are still really catching on in the mainstream in a way we hadn't seen yet before. Let's talk a little bit about what happened in the past year, either from a technical side or just an awareness side, that really caused this. You mentioned the next big boom in NFTs being sort of mass adoption, but what was it over the past year that caught people's eyes again and really brought people in? Elliot, we can.
Sure. Well, obviously, we have this 3-year Bitcoin cycle, right, that happens, and so that brings a huge flow of people into the space. A lot of innovation, a lot of crazy ideas being thrown around. And this time it was really went into NFTs like crazy, and so I think one of the waves right now with NFTs, the first wave is really people the influencers, the experimenters, the artists, the guys who they don't have a huge overhead, they don't have a huge cost of doing this. They can go in, they can throw ideas in, they're musicians. And they can get this out to large amounts of people, and that's exactly what happened. Everyone, my grandma, everyone knows about NFTs now, right? And I think we started early in the gaming space, and that was a really tough nut to crack. I mean, game developers, they have to spend millions and millions of dollars, years building their games, have all these resources, and then risking getting into NFTs is kind of scary for them with a new technology. So we've been really lucky to have this huge boom with the influencers and everybody doing this, and now we can start going into businesses using it to gamify, and businesses are quite open to trying new things, even though there's more resources involved. And then I think gaming is really going to take a lot of attention afterwards as well. So it's been really fortunate to see this happen. Now we have a lot of really solid businesses, solid blockchains, solid technology, and people are really trying to advance this properly. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, we have, I think, 5 or 10 minutes before we start taking questions from the audience. So just for everyone out there, please, if you have a question, drop it in the Ask a Question bucket. It's hard to track them when they're all in the chat. So just put them in the Ask a Question and then upvote them, and we'll get to as many of it as we can in the last 10 or 15 minutes or so. I think, Shaban, that was actually a nice little transition for us to talk a bit about Polkadot and Kusama and Substrate, and what excites you and Vitek specifically on the tech side about this next generation protocol, and what you're actually going to be able to build that is, it brings this technology into what I would argue is more of a production grade state, where everyone, like Elliot said, when AR, VR hits, it can't happen on ETH1 because it would break it real fast. Maybe Vitek, we can start with you building a Parachain on the panel today.
Sure. So I think there's two aspects to this: the technological, what it's built on, the technology, and then the sort of there's a sort of social and kind of that kind of aspect to blockchain. You know, the social contracts and the rules and the way that it was designed, and that's interesting to talk about as well. So on the technical side, I mean, I think that this ecosystem is going to be huge for this space. The way that you can really go deep down, design full token economies, design native tokens on a parachain, yet all the parachains can talk to each other seamlessly. There's all sorts of different mechanisms there, like XCM and others. So, you know, it's going to be one cool thing, actually, not to go to that social side, like I love the Polkadot and Kusama communities. Everybody in the space here seems to be really trying to help each other. We've been talking to many different projects. Everyone's just there to, like, you know, like elevate each other and work on standards. It's like the early days of some of the other blockchains. And so I love seeing that. You know, there's a huge potential to collaborate on really good NFT standards and things like that. So, you know, on the technical angle, I mean, we just love that you can optimize your protocol. If you're building a chain for, you know, gaming, you can optimize all the protocol, all the palettes that you're building, all the data, all the extrinsics to actually be hyper efficient. Not, you know, you don't have to deal with just a generic smart contract system. You can build trusted connections in between palettes. You can build trusted connections in between parachains, so you don't have to have all this overhead of permissions if you build it right. So, yeah.
Shaban, you want to build on your point? You were starting to talk about, you know, Polkadot, Kusama, and then, you know, what Substrate might be able to provide for, you know, the scalability necessary for integrating NFTs into games properly, and how you're looking at that.
So back in the time when we operated Spells of Genesis and Ethereum mainnet came, we got a lot of comments which people saying you should jump or you should go on Ethereum. And our argument was it's cheaper and faster, which is not the case anymore now. But what we notice is there are groups of people, and people who are on Ethereum are not the same that are on Bitcoin. There is kind of a challenge. And we thought we want to build our game and the tools around in order to serve different communities. So if you own a dragon on Bitcoin, on Ethereum, on other chain, it should be your choice. But in the game should see it's the same, and the art is the same, but the token is different. And each of those community are like a country. So when you do your game on Ethereum, it's like you're localizing. The interesting thing about Polkadot and Substrate technology is the Parachain ecosystem allows a multiple governance system within one group. So basically, you could create your NFT on one chain or another parachain because you prefer this, you prefer the founder, or you prefer that the fees are low, or whatever the reason is. There is the possibility to deliver content to multiple community and sub-community. And this is very interesting because Polkadot Substrate can provide this different sub-communities. And what we're trying to do, and that's the problem we're trying to solve, is to connect all the art, what is the creation, and the token, whatever the token is. It could be on Kusama, on Polkadot, on Unique Network, which is another parachain. It could be a lot of different places, and we try to put it all together. So we say to the user, you own that, and you own that on Kusama, this on Polkadot, this on Unique. So we need to bridge it all and serve all, and each of those subchain are governance system beliefs and markets in a way.
Great, yeah. Elliot, sort of right before that last point that Shaban made about being able to get your NFT wherever you are, which is obviously very important and a good reason why you should build on an interoperable protocol like Polkadot. The point before that about governance was actually really interesting, and I wanted to ask you about, coming from the more like, I want to say institutional art world with these giant players. In a lot of ways, Ethereum looks a little bit like a free-for-all because there really isn't governance. So maybe you could talk a little bit about why, having like even in a decentralized, trustless way, have the community actually be able to have say, and if the community includes like these big art institutions, why that might be important to them, right? Like I've heard people just collect on the collector side, sort of get a little bit, feel like they're not, being economically represented as well as they could be in a marketplace when an artist could maybe just mint 50 NFTs in a day after a good sale to try to cash in. Like governance could fix that and actually create an economically efficient marketplace.
Well, I think I'll throw your question back and flip it around. I wouldn't say why it could be helpful to those institutions. I think more interestingly is why it could be destructive to those institutions. The beauty of a decentralized world is that there is no single person who decides what's good, what can be sold, what can't be sold. One of the big things at Christie's when I was there in 2018, I said, great, let's sell some NFTs. I also said, let's sell some sneakers, let's sell some skateboards. And there was a lot of pushback because the market wasn't ready. Or let me rephrase that, Christie's wasn't ready as an institution to say, great, we're here and we're going to be selling skateboards, and we're going to be selling sneakers, and we're going to be selling NFTs. My philosophy was that an auction house should be like, with an asterisk, but an auction house should be like a marketplace, and it should serve the demand of the masses, of the market. For that reason, I think rather than how you pose the question, I actually think that this technology makes it dangerous for players like that have historically been the people who have said, we're going to decide what to sell, we're going to decide how much to sell it for, we're going to set the prices, because if the market and the artists and the collectors don't agree with you, too bad, now they have an alternative.
Yeah, totally correct, and appreciate the flip back. We're going to dive into...
To be politically correct for the artist.
No worries. I didn't expect you to defend the institutions anyway, but I gave you the opportunity. We're going to jump into a couple of audience questions in the last 10 minutes here. The first one here is about whether Enjin has secured a Parachain slot. So we'll skip that, considering Parachains literally just went live on Kusama, and the crowd loans opened up like a day ago, so they're literally just getting funded. It's quite early. I don't know if Vitek, you want to share anything about potential progress. I know it's not, you're not necessarily in the first batch of Parachains ready to go, but maybe rephrasing the question, like, how have you found the build so far, and how's it going generally?
Well, I mean, we're developing on Substrate. We completed our private sale, and a lot of those people involved in that were heavily involved in the Polkadot community. They're large DOT investors, so they're there to support us getting the Parachain. We also have been accumulating DOT for quite a while, so we have a number of strategies to get the chain, so I think we'll be okay.
So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today for Web3 Talks, diving deep on NFTs. Thank you, everyone else, for joining us today, and hope to have you back next time.
Thanks for having us.
Great. Thanks.
Thanks.